Hello, everyone. It's Amanda with the Content Marketing Institute. Thank you so much for joining me for this Monday's Ask the CM World Community Livestream. Each week, we dive into a new topic with an awesome guest from our CM World community. And today we have a very special VIP. This live stream is brought to you by the Content Marketing Institute. We are the leading training and education organization for all things content marketing. You can learn more about us at contentmarketinginstitute.com. You can get all kinds of education, our latest news articles, etc. over there. And as always, as you join me today, please give me a virtual wave, say hello, let me know where you're joining us from. It really makes for a more engaging live stream when we hear from all of you. If you share all your comments and drop your questions down there in the comments, and we will try to get to them as best we can. All right, today, I normally ask like a question of the day. So I thought, I don't know if you've been over to Twitter today at all. You may notice there's some stuff going on. So I was just curious if any of you had a take on what's going on with Elon Musk and Twitter and what we can expect from that if there's a big announcement today. I'd love to hear all of your hot takes on that. Should be an interesting day for sure. All right, everyone. I see some of you jumping in already. James, Kathleen, Stefan, Arun, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. All right, today's topic. Are you just churning out individual pieces of content, or are you building a body of work that builds increasing value over time? In other words, are you creating those individual summer tentpole movies, or are you creating a universe? Well, we are going to marvel at the wisdom of our guests today and chat about why your content won't differentiate you anymore, but the process, the strategy just might. So maybe we can help all of you unleash all of your content marketing superpowers as well. All right, today's guest really needs no introduction. Robert Rose is the Chief Strategy Advisor here at the Content Marketing Institute. He's also the founder of the Content Advisory. That's the education and consulting group of CMI. Robert has worked with over 500 companies. He's provided content marketing and strategy advice for brands like Capital One, NASA, Dell, Microsoft, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I mean, really, what haven't you done, Robert?
I haven't marveled at I see what you did there. That was really good. That was well played for a Monday morning. Yeah, that was good.
I was trying to work in like Spidey. I don't know. I couldn't. There's only so much. It's Monday. There's only so much I can do. Well, as I was asking the question of the day here about Elon Musk and the Twitter, whatever you want to call it, what's your hot take on it, Robert?
Well, I guess I'll be paying attention around 4:20 today. That'll be the time to really pay attention for any announcement. Look, my hot take on this is that it's probably not great for Twitter, although as a company, although investors and shareholders are getting a 30% premium on the purchase price, so I can't blame them for selling. Mm-hmm. But to me, Elon has actually, other than his ridiculous notions of free speech, hasn't really articulated any sort of vision or strategy for the company going forward, other than complaining about how he can't say what he wants. And so I don't see how this is good for Twitter employees. If I was a Twitter employee, I'd feel pretty rotten right now. Like everything that I've been working for is kind of going up in smoke. So I would expect to see a real effort by the company to try and keep some of that talent, but I would also expect to see a lot of talent leave. Mm-hmm. It'll be really interesting to follow along to see what he does. I think it's not a great day for Twitter, but it may be a great day for Twitter investors.
Yeah, that's good. It will be interesting to see. For sure. All right. Well, let's jump into our topic here. Like I said, as we go along, everyone, if you have a question for Robert or comment, please drop it in the comment section. We will try to get to it as best we can. All right, Robert, you're saying, why won't our content differentiate us anymore? Why is the process so much more important now?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes right down to it, one of the things that we just have to face the fact of is that on any given day, any piece of content is never going to differentiate our brand, our product, our company, our point of view. And even if miraculously you do come up with something highly original that's never been done that differentiates you, it won't be long before your competitor copies that exact message. I mean, that's kind of the whole point, is that you can only be remarkable for a very short amount of time before someone else copies that remarkability and has some level of success, maybe better than you, in getting it SEO optimized or whatever. So whatever point of view you bring to the marketplace is not going to, for any one piece, is not going to stay differentiated for long. And so ultimately, that means that any one asset or any two assets or any five assets that we create, in that sort of best practice, thought leadership focused way, is never really going to differentiate what we do. However, what will differentiate us is an approach, is a building a body of work that over time creates more value for the individual assets because they all exist together in a body of work. Here's what I mean by that. And it's funny, the Marvel universe is a great metaphor for this, because if you think about it, Iron Man came out in 2008, and yeah, it was a good movie. It was a fine movie. And, DC has created movies as well. But what Marvel has done so amazingly is that they mapped out 10 years worth of movies and built an entire cinematic universe around that. So Iron Man is better as a movie to go back to because Thor and because Spider-Man and because Avengers exist. In other words, Article 1 is better when Article 2, Article 3, Article 10 refer back to it and build it into a body of work. So as we start thinking about our content marketing strategy, we can continue to think of it as putting out individual asset after individual asset after individual asset, and some of them hit and some of them don't, and some of them work, some of them don't. Or we can start thinking about it more holistically, as how are we building an entire body of work that works together, that where you can go and interact with different pieces of it at any time, and you're building a place where people want to live rather than where people want to come in and visit and leave. That's the difference, really.
So how does that tie back to having a good process?
Well, it ties back to having a good process, because you have to think about how that works across your entire company, right? I mean, in other words, if you're a marketing person of one, or if you're a marketing person of, 100 in a large business, you still have to think about how is the business communicating. And again, I don't want to belabor this metaphor too much, but if you think about what Marvel has done in building their cinematic universe, it's different directors, it's different writers, it's different actors, it's different storylines, it's different ideas, but they brought it all together in a multifaceted way to be cohesive. And that's what we have to think about as we build. So many times I go into a B2B resource center, for example, and it's just, there's 100 assets in there, whether they're white papers and ebooks and infographics and webinars and all those kinds of things. And any one of them might be nice, but you see the missing opportunity right away. It's like, oh, I wish that webinar had referred to that white paper, or that white paper had referred to that ebook, or how they work together, or even that same topic covered in multiple formats. Really, our job as content marketing strategists, as content strategists, is how do we create a coordinated set of communications, thought leadership, to build and work together as a body of work, rather than sort of just individual campaigns or assets that sort of get thrown out into the wilderness. And in order to do that, you've got to have a steady foundational process and operation of content to be able to create that consistency, that coordination, because that coordination and consistency is at the heart of being able to create all those different stories in a scalable way.
Right. So we're going to change the content team, content strategy, how it's built. How does that tie back to the marketing strategy and the measurement.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you think about it, right? So there's a famous quote that I love very much, which it talks about the idea of, you without a standard, there can be no measurement, right? In other words, what are we measuring ourselves against, right? The metaphor I often use there is, imagine playing football, but the different teams have different ideas about what gaining 10 yards mean, or how many points are scored if you get into the end zone, right? But that's marketing today. So many, it's like, what does a hit mean? What does a download mean? What does a conversion mean? In so many ways, our teams, the multiple teams that we have in marketing, have different definitions and different standards for what all those things mean. So how can we measure? How can we measure any of that? And because we don't have any agreement on it. And so it's creating that standardized, operational, consistent, coordinated approach to content, which at its heart means getting a strategy around it.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's really just, how do we get alignment around the internal communication that we have with all the people that are going to be creating and managing and using content, and how do we get that into some sort of thing that we can all agree on? Because that's what the heart of a great integrated marketing strategy looks like, and that's how it gets measured in any kind of effective way that can point to business success. So it all ties back to the, it's a tweetable moment, but it's this kind of thing where I say 90% of content strategy has nothing to do with creating content. It is all about internal coordination and communication with all the people who are going to be telling the story of the business. And so that consistency is the real key here if we want to manage a brand or create measurable marketing success.
Because like you said, you can create content, but if it's not the process to go through and put it out there, et cetera, and everyone's on the same page, it's not going to do what you want it to do.
I mean, you get lucky occasionally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you throw out the one thing and it goes viral, and then everybody goes, "Yay, that thing went viral!" And then let's just let it sit there forever and not do anything with it.
Right. Sri says the process improves your quality.
Absolutely, yes. Right. I mean, it's funny. One of the things that happens a lot when we talk to clients is we start talking about process and planning and prioritization. In so many ways, content teams don't have any say in that. I've been quoted before as saying, that we're on-demand vending machines of content. And so it's sort of every idea that comes in through the intake form or through the trouble ticket system or, in our inbox, everything gets executed, right? Whether it's a good idea or not a good idea to get executed. Why? Because we're meeting some sort of internal SLA on content production. So putting in that planning and prioritization process and saying no to some ideas and saying yes to others and saying, let's mash two of these things together is such an important part of the quality part. But the pushback that we often get, which is really at the heart of that question, is, well, that feels like we're really going to slow things down. We're going to slow down the whole content creation part. Spoiler alert. Yeah, you are. You're going to slow it down. You're slowing down purposely the ideation, the creation, so that you can focus on quality. Because if you do that in an effective way and create that efficiency through consistency, well, it gives you time to start thinking about how we can start thinking about higher quality things or more considered bigger projects, because we'll stop doing the wasteful things. We'll stop doing the things that really aren't moving the needle or, quite frankly, aren't, helping us, be more creative. And so a great process typically does help creativity, because what it does is that it buys you the time to actually think about it.
Mm-hmm. Think about it, focus on it, find your
focus
focus
on it, create on it, brainstorm on it. I talk to so many content practitioners where I say, what's the balance of what you're doing reactively? In other words, what people are asking for, right? Versus proactively, what you're going like, this would be a cool thing to do. Let's go do it. Right. And I say, is it 60-30, 10, 70-30, 60-40, 50-50? And they're like, no, it's more like 90-10, 90 reactive and 10 proactive. And by the way, the 10 proactive isn't me creating content. It's me crying over my desk because I don't have time to do anything else.
Right. I love that. So not much has changed.
Right.
Another user says, love that, quality over quantity to tell a cohesive message or story. Sorry, I can't get your name on here. I don't know. It doesn't have your name, but all right. So we're talking about all of this. Do you have an example of someone who has a great process?
I think I would point to two right away, both of whom I've had the pleasure of working with in the past. And one is what Amanda Subler has done over at Cleveland Clinic. Um, they have recognized that content is as important to them as any of their service lines, right? So as any part of their hospital service lines, they have decided that content as a functional operation is as important. And so they're a well-worn case study at this point for what they've done with their blog, their Health Essentials blog, and their ongoing health library. And I think the key there is that they have all the people that you would think that they would have, right? Including probably a lot of roles that you think that they wouldn't have. But they have, they are the classic idea of a centralized model, a centralized process where there is a content team that is functionally focused on those two ideas, the Health Essentials blog, as well as their health library, as well as their website, as well as creating posters for the hallways in the hospital, as well as updating the doctor's hours, in email. They cover it all. They cover all the content for the organization. But what they understand from a process perspective is that each of those things are products, and they manage them like that. They manage them like media products. So the website, the Health Essentials blog, the health library, and so they have a very well understood, racy type of model where everybody knows who is responsible, who is accountable, who's getting informed, what the governance is, what the operation is for how these things move through their life cycle. And so what they've been able to do is really create a very functional idea of content that gives them the ability to create something amazing like the Health Essentials blog, which actually drives revenue and drives all sorts of things and great content marketing study. But even more importantly, affords them the time to be able to do things like the menial tasks of updating doctor's hours or the holidays in the hospital calendar or the posters that need to be in the walls and all the sort of tactical sorts of content items that we all have to create, and balance those things in a really great way. They're just a shining example of that.
What's the other one?
The other one I would point to would be Red Hat Linux, and what Laura Hamlin has been able to do there, and build in, and what I think is so amazing about what Laura did there was she started with, it's often that we start with trying to produce more, right? So we get more requests from sales, we get more requests from the CEO, we get more requests from all parts of the business to create more stuff, right? Assets, assets, assets. And as she started to build her team and her operational processes, she started with the structure of content. So she got her team really sharp and good around things like translation, localization for the global regions, for content structure, for SEO structures, and how it was going to be, built on the website versus the blog and multi-use, and structuring her team to be able to be really responsive and agile. And that focus gave her the ability, just into the heart of the previous question we talked about, getting really sharp on that operational side, gave her team the ability to do things like, hey, we can do cool stuff like launch a podcast, like their Command Line Heroes podcast, which is amazing, and gave them the ability to do things like put great content out for their executive center and really take on more of the creative heavy lifting, because they've put in that really great, functional focus on content structure.
All right, Robert. So if people need help putting that structure, strategy, process, you teach them all of this at our Content Marketing University. So if someone signed up for it, what can they expect from your curriculum?
I love how you did that. It was almost like a planned segue or something. Yes, we do teach this at Content Marketing University, and so this year I'm super excited. So I wrote about this on CMI's blog earlier this year. I think it was January, February. I wrote about what 2020, really what we've come out of the last 2 years of disruption facing. And it really speaks to this idea, which is we're seeing a real merging here, right? In businesses and especially larger enterprises, we're seeing a merging here of what used to be considered a content marketing approach and a content strategy approach. We're seeing content marketing practitioners really need to learn the idea of structured content governance, metadata, technology. And we're also seeing the content strategy folks really need to learn things like storytelling, great thought leadership, great execution, great, experiences, connecting those experiences together. So those two ideas are merging together into typically one functional team. Cleveland Clinic and Red Hat are great examples of that, where it is all of those practices are working together as a functional unit. And that's where that's really the sort of evolution that the university course has taken. Is what I've done is sort of taken all that experience that we've had from different brands and different ideas and pulled them all together into the new structure of the university course to talk through those items, to talk through the pressure points of how we start thinking about those and the frameworks that we're seeing really working, of how you build those teams, build those processes, build those strategies, as well as storytelling and messaging architecture and all the wonderful things that we need to do, persona development that are classic content marketing. But those worlds are coming together, and that's what CMI University this year really represents.
I do, before we go, have a quick question here. Havania, hope I said that right. As a content creation firm or agency assisting several different businesses, is it possible to create processes that work universally, or do the processes need to differ for each business we're catering to? And then finally, how do we tie all those together to build a process-driven culture?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, both, right? I mean, and what I mean by that is that it is possible to create functional frameworks, and I like to call them frameworks, not templates, because every business, at least every business I've ever worked with, has unique attributes to it, right? The personalities are unique, the workflows are unique, the people are certainly unique, and all of those challenges that they have are also unique. And there are also things that get in the way of pragmatism, right? So you can, in other words, if the CEO wants it blue and the CEO wants to review it every time it goes out to see that it's blue, it's going to be blue and he's going to get to see it. So that's just the way it works. So the key is, how do you take those standard frameworks that you create, the processes that you create, and make them flexible enough to bend and into the pragmatic ideas of how things really are going to work. The other thing I'll leave you with is, every great content strategy I've ever seen is only as strong as its ability to change. And so what you're really building here is a process of change, and how change can be affected most easily. And we've all lived 2 years of that, right? Our content strategy in 2018 and 2019 probably doesn't resemble what it is today. And the successful ones are able to bend and flex to meet those disruptions.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for today. If you guys want to learn more, head over to contentmarketinguniversity.com. If you use this little code here, learn22, you can save $100 off of your registration there. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate all your awesome insight. If you want to learn more about us, head over to contentmarketinginstitute.com. All right, everyone. All right, Robert. See you later. Have a great day.
All right.